Okay, I've got another game for you from the fantastic chess phenom Miaoyi. She is playing the white pieces in this one against this Indian master who I couldn't really find very much about. He's definitely a very strong chess player, as you can see, rated nearly 2,300, but this was the only picture I could find of him. So let's just go ahead and get right into the game. Miaoyi begins with pawn to d4, the queen pawn opening. We have knight to f6 by the Indian master, playing the king's Indian. We have pawn to c4 now by Miaoyi, and now we have pawn to g6 by the Indian master, preparing bishop g7, as is the case in the king's Indian in most positions. And now we have knight to c3 by Miaoyi. These positions played millions of times at this point. And now we have pawn to d5 by black, the Grunsfeld defense. And this is a bit more rare of an opening, so only a few tens of thousands of games have been played to this variation. We have knight to c3, or excuse me, knight to f3 by Miaoyi. And now we do see that bishop coming to g7. And like I said, tens of thousands of games have been played to this position, but Miaoyi finds the strongest move in this position, pawn to h4. A pawn push here. And again, the strongest move in the position, but only less than a couple hundred games have been played to this position now. We have pawn captures on c4, so d captures on c4 by the Indian master. And Miaoyi grabs a massive center with pawn to e4 now, the strongest move in the position. She's just kind of dominating the squares with her knights and her bishops. So definitely a solid move there. Like I said, best move in the position. The Indian master finds the best move as well. He plays pawn to c5 here. And there's been 35 games, including this one, played to this point in the chess.com database. And in all 35 games, pawn to d5 was played. That's the strongest move in the position. And now the Indian master finds the strongest move. Again, he plays another pawn push, pawn to b5. A bit of a funny, strange game here. A lot of pawn pushes here. I almost don't want my students to see this game, my kind of lower level students, as I'm always telling them, you should be getting your knights and bishops into the game before pushing pawns. You know, you want to try to control the center of the board, get your knights and bishops into the game. Well, the masters have a different way of playing. They definitely know what they're doing. Anyway, so we have pawn to b5 by the Indian master. Miaoyi finds the strongest move in the position, which of course is another pawn push. We have pawn to h5 by Miaoyi, and the Indian master goes ahead and castles. It would have been fine to go ahead and capture the pawn, of course, and you know, Miaoyi would probably pick up that pawn, so an even trade of material, but not what happened on the board. Miaoyi plays the best move, pawn captures on g6, and now we have f captures on g6, which is an okay move. There's nothing wrong with that move, according to Stockfish. I probably would have captured towards the center. We are supposed to normally capture towards the center, and you know, these pawns would have still had friends, but now this e pawn is isolated. That's definitely a weakness. Miaoyi finds another very strong move in the position. She plays another pawn push. She plays pawn to e5. And now the Indian master, of course, is going to reposition his knight, attacking the pawn here once again. And yeah, so we've got two attackers on that pawn. So, of course, Miaoyi is going to defend that pawn, right? No, no, no. She's going to go ahead and push a pawn again. She plays pawn to d6, and this is the strongest move in the position, although I would feel really nervous about these pawns just being overextended. Anyway, the Indian master plays the strongest response. He plays pawn to e6, and now maybe you want to pause your video for a second and see if you can find a pretty extraordinary move that you can get away with here, given the position. So there was like 10 games played to this point, including this one. Well, actually, no, that's not true. So 10 games played this next move, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But if you've paused your video and thought about it, hopefully, but we're going to go ahead and continue. Miaoyi plays the amazing rook takes on h7 check. And the issue is, if king takes, then of course, knight comes to g5. It's nicely protected by the bishop, so you know, probably the queen shouldn't take, although if this does happen, so if king captures rook and knight comes to g5 with check, it's actually recommended by Stockfish that the queen captures the knight, sacrificing herself. So not a good way to go for black. So instead, the Indian master plays the best move in the position. He plays rook to f5, and now Lu Miaoyi brings her rook back, just grabs the pawn, completely destroying the castle. We get an isolated pawn. That's all he has left there, so definitely a very strong way to go. Moving the rook back, though, was the best move in the position. We have knight to c6 now by the Indian master, and now Lu Miaoyi does grab this b5 pawn. Might have been better to move the bishop out here first, but okay, let's just go ahead and continue with the position that happened on the board. The Indian master actually plays the move now, queen to a5, which seems like a pretty decent move, but it's actually a bit of a mistake. It's kind of giving up the advantage that he could have had, and we'll take a look at what he should have played here. So he should have actually played knight captures on e5, and that's what the majority of the games that were played to this point, so 10 games played to this point, majority of the games they actually captured here. The rook captures back. Oh, wait. Or excuse me, knight captures on e5, knight captures on e5 again, and then rook captures on e5. The bishop should go ahead and be developed by white. This is the safest way to play. So bishop to e3, and now knight to d4 by black. Knight captures on d4, and then we play queen to a5. And queen comes up to d2 blocking. We have a queen trade. King captures. And this position is supposed to be better than what black would face on the board. So he shouldn't have played this. He shouldn't have played the other variation. He should have played this. But to me, this looks like it's losing for black. I mean, you're down 3 points. Anyway, let's go ahead and go back to what happened on the actual chessboard. So instead, the Indian master plays queen to a5 here, check. And now really the only move that makes sense, we have knight back to c3. And now we do see knight captures on e5. And now Lu Miaoyi plays knight to h4. Stockfish suggesting that probably capturing the knight would have been a little bit better, but we're not going to go into that. We have rook goes to h5 by the Indian master, and now Lu Miaoyi plays the strongest move, pawn to f4, and ostensibly attacking and getting to kick the knight. But the Indian master finds a brilliant move. He just moves his queen back to d8. Now we have 2 attackers on this knight, so the knight would be taken with check after the rooks are traded off. So Lu Miaoyi plays pawn to g3 here, defending the knight. The engine actually suggesting that we should just go ahead and capture this pawn here. And, the rooks are hanging, so you'd have to trade rooks, and then this pawn could pick up the knight. And, Lu Miaoyi's knight would get to hang out on g6 for a while, with the queen able to come over here. That would have been a pretty dangerous variation and a bit better than the one that Lu Miaoyi faces on the board. But we won't go further into that. Let's just continue with what actually happened. The Indian master now moves his knight back to f7, and now we have bishop to g2 by the Indian master. Lu Miaoyi plays, or excuse me, we have bishop g2 by Lu Miaoyi. The Indian master plays bishop to d7, and now we do see knight captures on g6 as that pawn was completely undefended. Now we've got to trade the rooks off. We have rook captures on h3. We have bishop captures on h3. And now the Indian master plays queen to f6. Before queen to f6, it might have been better to go ahead and grab this knight here. Just the pawn would capture back, and then you would have a couple isolated pawns and just kind of a weaker endgame possibility with that variation. But that's not what happened. Let's continue with what went on the board. We have knight back to h4 by Lu Miaoyi. The engine actually suggests that she should have just played knight here check, and of course the knight would capture back, and then the pawn could capture the knight, but then the queen could capture, and so this, you'd end up giving up your d6 pawn. And perhaps Lu Miaoyi thought she could hang on to this d6 pawn if things went well, so I think that's why she played this move. There is no way to hang on to that pawn. He's obviously way overextended. It's going to fall one way or another. But anyway, so Lu Miaoyi plays knight back to h4, and now we have knight to b4 by the Indian master. Now we have knight to e4 by Lu Maoyi attacking the queen. The engine does suggest that she should just move her king now. She will do that here, so we're not going to go into that, but we'll see why she needs to move the king in a moment. Yeah, so we now have knight to d3 check, and well, the queen is hanging over here. Lu Maoyi goes ahead and just captures. So we have queen captures on d3. Of course, we have pawn captures to d3, so c captures d3. And now we do see knight captures queen on f6 with check. We have bishop captures on f6, capturing the knight. And now Lu Maoyi plays pawn to f5. She should have instead played bishop here, according to Stockfish. This would have been a little bit better. Let's go ahead and take a look at that variation. So instead, white should have played bishop to e3 here, and then the b2 pawn falls, bishop captures b2, rook to b1, then we'd have rook to b8. White would have to move the king, of course, because if you don't move the king, you've got this discovered check and you lose your rook. So white would need to move the rook over. And then, of course, we lose this d6 pawn. No way to save that pawn. Bishop would then capture on c5, pressuring the knight, but then knight back to e4, putting pressure on the pawn and the bishop at the same time. The bishop would capture on a7, attacking the rook. And then we could play knight to d2 check, winning the rook. But, of course, this rook is hanging as well. And this should have been a better variation for white, as it turns out. But let's go ahead and go back to what actually happened on the chessboard. So Lu Maoyi actually pushes the pawn to f5. The Indian master pushes his pawn to e5. And now we have bishop back to g2 by Lu Maoyi. We have pawn to e4 by the Indian master as the rook was attacked, just using the pawn to block. Maybe pause your video for a second if you'd like to think about this. Why can't you take the pawn? Why can't you just take it? It's not a defended pawn. Hopefully you've paused your video if that's what you want to do, if you want to figure that out. Yeah, if the bishop captures, then the rook is going to come to e8, and there's no way to save the bishop. It's pinned to the king, and you've probably lost the game if you're playing for white. So, of course, Lu Maoyi does not do this. She plays a bit of a mistake. She plays bishop to e3, which is a good move to play after another move. She should have played rook to b1 first, defending this pawn, of course. So yeah, this was a mistake for Lu Maoyi. The Indian master pounces on it. He plays bishop captures on b2. We have rook to b1 now, and of course we have rook to b8, and we're in that, pretty similar to the variation we just looked at. Of course, the king has to move. So Lu Maoyi plays the best move in the position. She moves her king to f1, avoiding that discovered check, and now we see that hopeful d6 pawn does fall. Yeah, so he's gone. Knight captures on d6. This is the best time to capture. And now Lu Maoyi, she should have captured this pawn here. This is a free pawn, but instead she goes for the pin. She pins the knight to the rook. Seems like this is easy enough defended, as the rook can just lift up here. This is the best move in the position for black. But actually, now it seems like this rook is overworked, as he's expected to guard the knight and the bishop. Lu Maoyi plays the strongest move in the position. She captures the knight. Of course, the rook captures back. So bishop captures knight on d6. Rook captures bishop on d6 by the Indian master. And it seems like white should go ahead and grab this, this bishop here. But the trouble is we've got connected pass pawns here. It's too dangerous to do that. You cannot take the bishop. So Lu Maoyi plays the strongest move in the position. She plays bishop captures on e4. And now the Indian master actually advances this pawn here. What he should have done is saved his bishop, and he would have probably won this game with that variation. So let's take a look at what he should have done here. So he should have pulled his bishop back to f6. And then probably white would grab this fantastic outpost here with knight to g6. We have rook to d8 by black. And really at this point, the best move is just to capture this pawn. It's a passed pawn. We've got these bishops that can come in and cause all kinds of problems for the position. You know, maybe even going, you know, this way once the rook is out of the way. So yeah, the best move in this position actually would be just to go ahead and capture this pawn. And of course, then black is totally winning in the position. So that's what he should have played, but not what he did on the board. So instead, the Indian master advances his pawn to d2, a bit of a mistake. And now we have bishop back to c2 by Lu Maoyi, the best move in the position. He plays bishop to c1, and now Lu Maoyi moves her king to e2. She probably should have went after the king with rook to b8 first, but it's kind of difficult to see that. We're not going to go into that variation now. The Indian master plays pawn to b3 here. He probably should have moved his bishop to c6, just getting that bishop in a more active position. Lu Maoyi plays pawn to d4. Again, the engine just recommending activating the rook, but this time going down here to b7. The Indian master plays pawn to c4 now, and now Lu Maoyi plays the strongest move in the position. She plays rook to b4, and the Indian master goes ahead and advances the pawn, protecting his passed pawn. And now Lu Maoyi plays pawn to g4 by white, and we have bishop to b2 by the Indian master, and Lu Maoyi plays pawn to g5. And the engine is calling this a blunder, saying that she should have instead played rook to c4. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that variation now. So Lu Maoyi should have played rook to c4 here. We'd have rook to d5 by black, knight back to f3 by white. And yeah, this should have been a better position for white, according to Stockfish. Things are pretty even, but everything is well defended. Let's go back to what actually happened on the board, though. So Lu Maoyi does push the pawn to g5. We have rook to d5 by the Indian master. And now we have rook down to b8 by Lu Maoyi. King to f7 is the best way to play this. We have pawn to g6 by Lu Maoyi. The king moves to g7 here. And now we have rook to b7, pinning the bishop to the king. And I guess the Indian master wants to step out of this pin, and he makes a mistake. He should have just gone ahead and moved his bishop to a3 here, kind of helping defend the position. But instead, he blunders and plays king to f6. And Lu Maoyi plays rook to b6, best move in the position. The Indian master goes at the knight here, king to g5. And now Lu Maoyi advances her pawn. Do you want to eat my knight? Because I'll go ahead and get a queen. The Indian master does not want that, so he plays rook to e5, checking the king, getting himself in position to stop that pawn. Lu Maoyi moves her king to f2. And now we have rook to e8 by the Indian master, stopping that pawn. Lu Maoyi plays king to g3, defending her knight. And now we have bishop captures on f5, and Lu Maoyi moves her knight back to f3, checking the king. We have king to h5 by the Indian master, and now bishop captures bishop on f5, and Lu Maoyi is up a couple points now. We have pawn promotes to queen here by the Indian master. And now we actually have bishop to g4, and that is checkmate. As the knight is covering these squares, the rook is covering that square, so he promotes to a queen, and he gets checkmated. Kind of nice to actually see a checkmate in one of these games. A lot of times, these masters will just resign as they see that there's no way to win. So I'm happy to see that this guy actually played to the end. Anyway, that's the end of that fantastic game. Thank you for joining me for that. Please like and subscribe. Also, check me out on Patreon. There should be a link in the description. Yeah, thank you for your kind attention here. All right, bye-bye.